joining me on the program, the voice that you heard there, the founder of Orphans Aid International, Schreven. Kia ora, it is wonderful to chat with you again. Welcome to the program.
Kia ora, Andrew. It's lovely to be here with you.
Now, the trailer that we just heard and the visual images of that as well, very compelling. I've had the opportunity to see a special sneak peek, a special preview of this documentary. It is called What's Your Everest? And Sue, this isn't your first rodeo, is it? I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years and your fifth documentary, I understand?
Sorry, what was that?
Was it your fifth documentary?
Yes, I can't believe that. Can you believe it? When we did our first documentary back in 2008, Rob Harley was, the producer of that and came with us to Romania. And I just remember how excited I was that we had a documentary showing the needs of the children in Romania, showing the needs of the children in the cots. And then a couple of years later, Rob did a follow-up documentary, went out wide, right across the nation. I thought, this is too good to be true.
Yeah.
2 documentaries. And then a couple of years later, it was a follow-on again. The kids were all getting bigger. We were following the progress. And I thought, we've got a trilogy. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then we did Mount Kilimanjaro for our 15th anniversary, and we were so blessed to have Mountain of Hope once again put out with the follow-on stories and the widening work of Orphans Aid. And now, that seemed just such a blessing. And I'm just thankful to the Lord. We've got another opportunity now on our 20th with, as you say, going to the top of the world this time for What's Your Everest. And what a blessing! What a privilege!
It's so wonderful, and look, not many people have the opportunity to have their life and their ministry documented in a series of documentaries. As you say, it started with a trilogy, and we just kept on going in that regard.
I know. I'm not sure where it's going to end.
What's it like looking back at younger, enthusiastic Sue back in 2008? Do you still go back and watch some of those earlier documentaries?
I do, actually. In fact, I'd like to go and watch Mountain of Hope again. I haven't seen that one for a while. That's 5 years ago.
Yeah,
I do. In fact, the last documentary, one of my sons said to me, "Mum, you looked really young in that documentary. You look really old now."
that could be quite confronting. Exactly.
Yes. It is a blessing because, sometimes we don't capture moments. And I found this also with my book. Sometimes we've got to record the miracles that have happened along the way. And it's wonderful when you have a storyteller and someone with skill that is recording it for you, because I've got a drawer at home that's got lots of little discs of all our home video. The times we've gone to Romania, my husband Carl, he's filmed lots of various things, and I've filmed things. But you come home and you don't edit it. It gets put in the drawer and it's valuable. And then technology changes. But how many unedited bits of footage do we have on our phones or on?
Now, in terms of what Orphans Aid has done in the last 20 years, yes, documented by these series of videos, but in some ways, this was a wonderful opportunity to invite people to be part of your passion for orphans over the years. Yes, to follow their story, but to welcome New Zealand into this as well. Talk to us about how important the documentaries have been in terms of the publicity, the exposure, the promotion of this valuable work.
Well, it is actually invaluable to us. We're very thankful to Shine TV for this opportunity, because how do you get your story out otherwise? And when the first documentary came in 2008, we were just a very small charity. We'd only been going a few years when it was filmed, and suddenly people knew who we were. The phone didn't stop ringing. We just didn't have an office. It was at home. We had to pull the phone out of the wall to get to sleep at night. Seriously, that's what happened.
Wow.
And I'm very, very thankful, because how do people hear about what we're doing otherwise? And sometimes you'll bang into people and they know about the work, and other times, this last week, I've banged into a few people that I thought would have known about Orphans Aid International, but they don't. And so an opportunity like the documentary What's Your Everest, we're reaching out to new people and a whole new generation the same way that the work of Orphans Aid International, we're reaching a whole new generation of children now.
Hmm.
There's a whole new generation of babies, of infants coming through, of teenagers coming through. There's a whole new generation of Kiwis coming through
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So it's how to keep reaching, so that the two meet, those that can help and those that need help.
With this documentary, and well, a privilege to partner with Orphans Aid in putting this together. It's premiering, of course, on Shine TV. Was this one different for you in some ways, Sue? This documentary, as I say, you've told stories before. You've been part of a documentary film crew. Was this one different, and if so, in what way?
Yeah, I think they're all different. This one, I think this was 20 years in the making.
Yeah,
So 20 years is a long time. And I remember when we started Orphans Aid International thinking, what would it be like when we were 10? What
yeah,
would the organization look like? And how many children would we be helping? And you hope and you have some, thoughts about it. But this is 20 years.
yeah.
So it is a biggie. And it does make you very, very thankful. And it does make you reflect back. And it also makes you think forward. Okay, so we've got to 20 years. So this documentary, What's Your Everest? I'm really hoping it's a bit of a what's the word? It brings a change for the future
Yeah.
as well, because these things often break open, break it open for the charity.
Mm,
So I'm really hoping that a game changer, that's the word I was looking for. I'm
yeah.
hoping that this is a game changer, that as we look at What's Your Everest, as new people hear about it, as they see the work. There's a lot of the work on the ground in India featured, and of
Hmm.
course we work in many different places now that they'll think, oh, Orphans Aid, yeah, I have heard of them.
Yeah.
Let's find out a little bit more about them. I'd love to get behind them.
Now, with
And yeah,
I'm sorry, just wanting to say one of the things I do love about the documentary, with the way in which there's kind of two stories being told. There's a story of you and a team that are wanting to reach to the top of the world, step by step, taking on this huge challenge of hiking to Everest Base Camp. And there's a little bit of drama with that. There's a little bit of
yes.
tension as, oh, will they make it? Will they catch the plane in time? But then at each cliffhanger, the documentary drops back to why you're doing it,
That's
to
right.
the work that is happening on the streets of Kolkata with the young people in particular that desperately need your help. I love the way the documentary does that. Yes, it's a journey to the top of the world, but it's also a journey to some of the poorest people in the world at the same time.
It's been really beautifully done. And when people are watching it, if they can remember that the person filming it was actually a climber as well.
Yeah.
So young Caleb was filming and doing a very good job.
I
And
just wanted to give a shout out to Caleb, because I know there's scenes in the documentary, and as people watch it, they'll be able to see this. There's one cameraman on this trip. So there would have
that's
been
right.
times where he was running up and down the mountain to be able to film different aspects of it.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
he
sure how he
was.
did it. I'm not sure. It
He,
was
he was
amazing.
because I was, I'm not the fastest walker, so he had to keep checking in on where Sue was,
Yeah.
and I said to Caleb the other day, "You're missing off the documentary. There's one person missing. It's
Yeah.
you, the cameraman."
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, there's a bit where you can see my arm." So
He's a very
but
talented
he
young
did it.
man, and
Yeah,
he's a great storyteller as well. But you're well, in some ways, you are the narrator of this story, but the stars of the story are the children.
that's
The
right.
smiling faces of the children, and also the wonderful stories of hope, where in the documentary, we get to meet people who once were street children and
That's
now
right.
have thriving families of their own. Their lives have been changed because of the work. I mean, this isn't new to you, but certainly watching the documentary for the first time, there's so much hope here.
There really, really is. And it's because of the children that you actually do these things. It's not a normal job.
Yeah,
It's not a job actually. It's a calling
yeah,
and a ministry. And I think that's what actually um drives you or keeps you going.
Yeah.
20 years is a long time to be doing something, but I believe I've got another 20
Yeah.
years, in me with this that I believe I'm meant to do. And yet yeah, it's actually the faces, and over the 20 years, there is sometimes that you can feel a little bit low or a little bit discouraged,
Yeah.
but then you catch up with some of the kids, or it's time to go and visit the projects to keep, just to check in, make sure everything's okay, make sure
Wow.
the kids have been treated well, make sure donors' funds are being used well, check in with the partners, make sure we're understanding one another, and just that keep those relationships very relevant and keep our understanding very real. And you turn up somewhere and you're greeted by children that, the week by week, the month by month work is actually sustaining and ensuring that they're loved and ensuring that they've got a home. And
I
yeah, it's extremely fulfilling and just warms your heart,
uh,
when you see that.
Another aspect which I really loved is how the mountain itself, and there's some absolutely beautiful shots of the mountain vista as you're traveling through this unique part of the world, but how the mountain is a metaphor for what God
Yes.
has called you to do at Orphans Aid. That each day, and we really get to see some pretty brutal footage as you're traveling up the mountain, but that each day and that each step and some of the struggles and some of the challenges along the way. The journey of Orphans Aid has in some ways been a step up after step challenge in a similar way to climbing Everest.
Very, very much. It's actually a perfect picture of it, to be honest, because you never know what's around the corner, and sometimes it's, oh, you walk around the corner, oh, great, there's a nice flat piece. I'm not going to have to, I can catch my breath here.
Yeah.
And then other times it's like, oh no, more steps,
Exactly.
and you're
Or
not quite sure where it's
even worse,
coming
there's
from.
one point in the documentary where it's not so much the steps, it's if we have to go down to cross another river, then we've got to go down, which means we have to go back up again. There's certainly some
I know.
heartbreaking moments in that journey.
Yes, and on the way down the mountain, you knew where all the ups and downs
Oh,
were.
yes.
So on the way down, you were doing a lot of up as well,
Wow.
because you were going down to go up,
Mm.
to go across the next ridge to
You,
go down.
we didn't see
And
that,
so,
but we imagined that you had to do
mm,
the reverse of that journey in that regard. Now, just wanting to ask you about what it's like watching yourself on a documentary. Now, it's okay, back in 2008, we're all a lot younger back in 2008, but honestly, there's something quite confronting in the fact that that honestly, you're very open about you're struggling here. You're not getting an
mm,
opportunity to do hair and makeup when you're walking up for Mount
no,
Everest. There's a camera in your face whilst you're going through
mm,
some pretty tough times, some pretty some really a real struggle physically. Is it
mhm,
a little bit confronting to be that vulnerable, to be that exposed
no,
in this story? What?
no, that doesn't, no, it doesn't really worry me at all. I think after 20 odd years, I'm not so worried about people's opinions. I'm more concerned about we've got a job to do
Yeah,
here, you know. Yeah, we've got a job to do. We've got children that are relying on us. We've got to get up this mountain,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not a walk in the park, It's so no, that actually never worries me, to
Yeah,
be honest.
yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah, I think there's a bigger cause than it's actually, not about how you look.
Yeah.
It's it's
Well, I
it's really.
honestly, so I really appreciate that about you, and not just in this documentary, but yeah, the way in which you've been so open and so vulnerable to share
Appreciate
your
that.
story and the passion that you have, and that really does come across clearly in the documentary. Something else which you share there as well, though. Um, I'm not sure your doctor recommended that you take on this particular trek.
Mm,
You've had some medical challenges in recent years, and this is something which is also talked about in the documentary. And
mm,
and hey, we have hindsight to know that Sue made it to base camp and back again. But there's times in the film, but there's also must have been times for you where you thought, "Am I going to make it? Is
mm.
this
Oh,
going to be
very much
possible?"
so. Yeah, I did get medical clearance to do the trip because we want to make sure everyone comes back.
Yeah.
But that would be just horrendous if we lost a climber. And the climbers did so well.
Yeah.
So, you're really wanting to protect and guard everybody. That's the ultimate. But yeah, there was one point, it's actually in the documentary. I'm talking to the guide, and we're actually getting quite close to the top there. And I am actually starting to get a little bit worried about it because
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel not the greatest, to be honest. And I
Mhm.
was starting to feel, I haven't even, apart from Carl, I haven't told anyone, I was starting to feel a bit tight in my chest. And I was starting to think, oh
Yeah.
gosh. So I was actually having a chat to the guide about where we were going and what we were doing. And I didn't want to spook anybody out.
Yeah.
So yeah, kept walking.
There are
But
also
I
moments.
actually wasn't
Yeah.
feeling that great, to
Yeah.
be honest. Yeah. And you have to watch the documentary to see it, but
Yeah.
there was kind of a little something that helped me along the way there.
Yeah, no,
And
we'll keep that
yeah,
one under wraps, but that's quite a moment in itself.
yeah,
And
it is.
I suppose I had a new understanding of, well, yes, climbing up steps for multiple
Mhm.
days in a row is one
Mm,
thing, but actually the altitude sickness, not having the time
yeah,
to acclimatize, and look, even for people that were physically fit, and there were some pretty young fit
yes,
people that were involved with it as well. But
yes.
everyone struggled with the thinness of the air in this journey.
That's right. You don't know how you're going to react to the altitude, and as you get higher, you feel like you're climbing uphill, but you're actually going along a flat. It's almost as hard to go along the flat as it
Wow.
normally would be to go uphill. I live in Queenstown, so I have got a lot of mountains around me.
Hmm.
So I do things like I was doing a lot of training up Tobin's Track. That was one of my short ones, but it's a steep little climb, and so I'm climbing around the mountains. So every time I go out for a walk, you're looking for uphill, you're looking for steps, you're looking for something that's going to get your legs working, get your heart working.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of training that goes into it. But actually, how do you train for those boulders? I think the only place I could have trained, I was surprised how big the rocks and the boulders were. I actually hadn't didn't have that in my mind. All the videos I'd watched, I hadn't seen that.
Mm.
No one had told me that the boulders were going to be so big.
Yeah.
We did Mount Kilimanjaro 5 years ago, and the paths were there wasn't all these big rocks. There
Mm.
was a couple of walls we had to climb over, but there wasn't these big rocks. And my favorite quote from my husband Carl on the way up, oh, this is a big rock. We can parachute off this one, as you put it down on your on your hand, on your hands and your knees, scaling up this
Wow.
thing.
I mean, this is
I
what.
think the only place you could actually really train for that would be Mount Cook. And
Yeah.
we don't live at Mount Cook, do we? We can't go climbing up these big mountains every day. So it was
Perhaps that's
actually that.
that could be your next challenge, perhaps, Sue, we'll get to that in a moment. But of course, another one of the challenges is the weather wasn't necessarily your friend. There was a lot of concern about some awful weather in that part of the world. I understand that some of the paths, there were slips. They'd had to
Yeah, there'd been
reroute
a
things.
lot of rain.
Yeah.
There'd been a lot of rain beforehand. So we were wondering if we were going to be able to get to the start line.
Yeah.
In fact, the biggest challenge was getting to the beginning. And the biggest challenge was getting home. That's not on the documentary, but
Yeah.
we all missed our flights home.
Wow.
So yeah, we had big delays on the way down. But what that meant was that we had less time to climb.
Mm.
So we had lost our acclimatization days. So we were supposed to have 2 days resting as we went up,
Wow.
but we weren't able to get those rest days. So I think the rest days would have actually, I think the rest days would have been a really big help. But we were just really thankful that we got to be able to do it
Mm.
because a lot of groups that were there, a lot of individuals that were there got turned away because they were waiting too long in the fog
Yep.
and in the drizzle to get through to the start line.
Wow.
But we were really fortunate and really blessed that we had good weather as we climbed higher.
Hmm.
So for some people, they go up to base camp and they can't see anything. And it's all in the fog and the snow. But we got up there, and I don't want to give this documentary away, but you'll see there's some fantastic footage.
There's some beautiful imagery there, and the
Mm.
whole area. I mean, the glory of God's creation surrounding you.
That's
That
right.
must have been an
That's
encouragement
right.
in that
Actually,
regard.
it was gobsmacking, to be honest. It was like, oh wow, look at this. And you had to turn around and you had to just take it all in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a good excuse to stop and try and catch your breath as you're looking at the scenery along the
Yeah,
way.
that's right. Oh, I might just take some photos
Well, exactly.
to
Now,
catch your breath.
there's also a wonderful, I suppose, metaphor of God's grace here, because as you say, there was all sorts of obstacles. There were lots of other teams that were turned back, but there was a particular grace on you and your team. And again, that's
Yes.
such a wonderful metaphor of the work of Orphans Aid. Now, there's wonderful ministries in different parts of the world, but not many have the longevity and the strength to not just keep on going, but to keep growing and to taking on new challenges like Orphans Aid. What keeps you and your team going, Sue? What motivates you to take that next step in your ministry?
Mm. Well, I think you have to really believe that you're doing what God's called you to do, and that you really believe that He will make a way, as you say.
Yeah,
So we're over here, and we're in a place called Rumchup. We're waiting for a plane. It's
yeah,
not looking great. We're sort of down to the last few hours, really, of when we can possibly go. Otherwise, we're going to have to cancel.
yeah,
And the plane comes through, and the amount of times that this has happened with Orphans Aid International, where, boy, we've got a whole pile of kids to feed, we've
yep,
got a lot of bills to pay. Where's it going to come from? It's due, and quite often, you're down to the hour,
yeah,
or on the occasion where it's been actually what's happening here, and then you hear there's a miracle on the other side.
yeah.
Some funds have come in directly to the project, and you didn't know it at the
And
time.
it's
So
easy looking back at the miracles, but
that's
when you're
right.
on the wrong side of the miracle, and honestly, I was watching the preview of the documentary with my wife, and she was in tears at
Oh, that's
some of
awesome.
the awful situations faced by street children in
Oh, I
Calcutta.
know. Yeah,
And,
and that keeps you going.
j-
That keeps you going, definitely. But there's also, you have to believe that. I've often said to people, yeah, God has really blessed the work. He has God really cares about the orphan and the widow.
yeah,
This is His heart. And so when we step out and we go to the most vulnerable, the Lord is with us. It's His heart to bless these areas. And you've really got to believe that, because if you were relying on your own strength or your own strategies, and we of course we're always thinking, what can we do? How
yeah,
can we serve better? How can we fundraise more?
mm,
But actually, it's bigger than that. It's actually us being obedient, and us stepping out when it looks scary and we don't know where it's going to come from, and perhaps being prepared to make a fool of ourselves if it doesn't come through,
yeah,
and it always does. So I
mm,
think this keeps you going. As we mentioned earlier, the kids you meet, but you've also got to have that inner belief that actually the Lord will provide. And because if you don't, you won't do it, because it's actually too hard if you
yeah,
don't believe the miracles are going to
yeah.
come,
So
you
thank
know.
you so much for the inspiration that you bring. You've been to the top of the world and back again. I almost have to ask the question: what next? Is it a mission to Mars? Because you've taken on just about every challenge, but I know God has many more challenges for you and the
I
ministry.
believe.
I
Mm.
encourage people to check out the documentary "What's Your Everest" on Shine TV, and also to visit the work orphansaidinternational.org, orphansaidinternational.org, and prayerfully consider supporting this wonderful work that you have started, that you pioneered, and that you're keeping going. Sue, thank you for your time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, so appreciated. Thanks so much, Andrew. We so appreciate you guys.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.